So this is lesson 7. It's over pages 47 and 48. So let's put that up here. And it is going to enter into a section called decimals. And all of you have worked with decimals before, but whether or not you've really understood the whole decimal thing, that can be debated, I suppose. So let's make a number line. And just put 0 here, 1 here, and 2 here. Okay, so a decimal is just like a fraction. It's part of something. So it's not a whole something, it's a part of something. So if we have, let's say 1/2, and let's move this page down a little bit. Okay, I guess it's not going to move. Let's say that we have 0.5. That is the same as 1/2. 1/2 is 1 out of the 2. So if you remember when we were talking about fractions earlier, we have a whole pie. It's broken into 2 sections, and we care about 1 of those sections. So there's 1/2. If we were to change 1/2 to a decimal, we would divide. We would do 1 divided by 2. And 2 goes into 1 0 times. And because that's all the further it looks like it can go, we put a decimal and just add a bunch of zeros. So 2 goes into 1 0 times. We bring the decimal up here, and we'll get into this a little bit more. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So that's where we got 1/2 is equal to 0.5. So if we're doing this on a number line, and we want to show different parts of along on the number line, let's say that we want to show this number right here. That number is, well, let's divide this into 4 pieces. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 pieces, and we're talking about 1, 2, 3 of those 4 pieces. So 3 of the 4 would be 3 of the 4, which would be 3/4. You could also write this as if these were dollars. So we've got 25 cents. And the way you write 25 cents is 0.25, 50 cents, 75 cents, and then $1. So notice the decimals are part of the whole dollar. Okay? It's just a little piece of the whole dollar. Now, if we were up here, let's say that we had a point right here, and that was 0.5. We would be at 1.5. So we had to go to the 1, and then we went an additional 1/2. So that number would be 1.5. All right, so we can have decimals that are less than 1, between 0 and 1. We can also have numbers that are greater than 1. That could be 2, 3, a million. And then the number between, let's say 1 and 2 in this case, would be 1. We go to the 1 place, and then we go an additional 0.5 and tag that on there. And that's where we get our decimals. So let's look at this handy dandy little table here. So our numbers are to the left of our decimal. Our numbers to the left are the numbers you're used to working with. 1,798. This is the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. To the right of the decimal are our decimals. And we don't start with ones like we did here. We start with tenths. Notice it has a THS ending, tenths. And I always make fun. The reason they don't start with ones is because you can't say one-th. It's too hard. So that reminds you that you start with tenths because you can actually say that. The next decimal is hundreds and then thousandths. Now try to say thousand thus. That's a little bit hard. So 1,798.652. Okay. Or you could say 652 thousandths if you'd like, but I don't think anybody says that. They say 0.652. All right, so adding and subtracting decimals. Not really too difficult. It's just like adding and subtracting any other number. The only thing is you have a decimal point that you're dealing with. One of the things that's important as far as the decimal points, whether you're adding or subtracting, they have to be lined up together exactly. And then you bring the decimal point down. So right in line with the two that are lined up. And you just add 8 and 3, 3.8. Nothing really weird. Okay? Same is true when you're dealing with subtraction. You borrow, you do everything the exact way you do for addition and subtraction. You just have a decimal point. All right, so what happens when you have a number such as 2.361 and you're adding one? Oh, let's add 10.36, like that. So we've got two numbers here. First thing you have to realize is your decimals have to be lined up. So I'm just going to draw my decimals lined up. And I've got 2.361. And I'm going to write this one now, 0.136. Because there is an extra number here, I'm going to put a number down here too. Just put a 0 there. And then you just add. But the key thing is, no matter what, your decimals have to be above each other or in the same column for addition and subtraction. Okay, so that is page number 47. So let's jump to page 48. Okay, 48 is just a little page here, and we're multiplying and dividing decimals. All right, so one of the things about multiplying decimals is the decimals do not line up. In fact, they shouldn't line up. It makes it, I guess you could do it with them lined up, it just makes it too hard. So 2.5 times 3. All we do is multiply just like normal. 15, carry the 1, 7. And then we look at how many places our decimal went over. It went over 1, so it goes over 1 here in the 7.5. If I have 2.52 times 15.6, it's kind of hard to multiply those if they're lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2.52 times 15.6. And I'm just going to multiply. So see, I'm not lined up at all. Doesn't matter. My digits are more important than I line up. And if there's fewer digits in one of the numbers, I usually put that one on the bottom. So for example, if I had 2.52 times 1.6, the smaller number, or the number that has fewer digits, I put in the bottom because it's just easier to multiply that way. If I were to multiply like this, that's a little bit harder to do. You can do it, but it's kind of a pain. So usually put the smaller number there. All right, so back to this one here. So 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1, 31, 3, 12, 15. 10, carry the 1, 25, 26. 2 times 5 is 10, 12. 2 times 1 is 2, 5, 2. Now I add my columns. Okay, now where do I put the decimal? Well, this one it's 1, 2, and this is 1. So I add those digits together. 2 places here, 1 is here. So I move the decimal. 2 plus 1 is 3. So I'm going to move that decimal right there. Okay, and I've got my answer. Okay, division is kind of the same way in that you divide decimals just like you do regular numbers. All right, so let's use our example. 12.2, let me get a pen here. 12.2 divided by 2. Okay, so the first thing you do is you move the decimal that was right here, you move it up to where your answer is going to go so that your decimals are there. And then you ignore the decimal completely. So 2 goes into 12 6 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. 1 times 2 is 2, 0, so you have no remainder, so you know when to stop. So 6.1 is your answer. So the only key thing with your division is to move this decimal straight up. Okay, and that looks like that's all they're doing in this, because if you remember from long time ago, when you were younger, you could have 12.2 divided by 2.1. I don't know if you remember that, but if you do have a decimal here, you can't divide. You have to get rid of that decimal. So what you do, and I don't know if they'll go into this later or not, but let's just do it. You got to make this into a whole number, so we have to get rid of this decimal. The only way to get rid of this decimal is to move it over 1 place. If we move it over 1 place, this is no longer 2.1, it is now 21. Okay? And in order to move that decimal place here over 1, we have to take this one and move it over 1. So now I have 122 divided by 21. And now I've got a decimal there, and I move it up. And I just do my division. Okay? So that's stuff that may come later, may not even be discussed at all, but at least I wanted to go over that with you. Okay, the next video will be over the exercises.